absolutely. I know that too. I have my 2 boys here who are always there. If it wasn't support in the verbal way, they were lifting or moving or pushing or whatever. So we definitely understand that as educators. Megan, if you are ready, we'd be delighted to hear.
Sure. So, good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me to the Graduate Symposium 2018. I was very honored and very thrilled to be here. So, my name is Megan D., and I work for the U.S. Forest Service Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit in South Lake Tahoe. Specifically, I work in conservation education and interpretive services. So no, I'm not a classroom teacher, but I actually do tell the kids all the time, I have the best job, and my job is working in the outdoors with you all, kids. And so my job has really been, it's led me to getting my master's in teaching. And I just wanted to actually start out with asking everybody to take a big deep breath and close your eyes. I'd like you all to imagine some sort of an outdoor experience that you've experienced. This could be meaningful to you. This could be something that you envision yourself being outdoors and enjoying. It could be kayaking. It could be skiing. It can be just walking through the nearby meadow. Take a moment and think about how this experience makes you feel. Nature creates impact, it creates wonder, and it creates excitement. Gently open your eyes. Welcome back. And thanks for envisioning that. So many students, many children do not have these types of experiences. According to Richard Louv, who's coined the term nature deficit disorder, many children are becoming more and more disconnected to nature. And as the beginning, that's the reason for my project. With the Forest Service, I've had about 8 years working as an informal teacher in the outdoors. And I've had the privilege of working with the Lake Tahoe Unified School District, the U.S. Forest Service, and many environmental education organizers and organizations that have the similar goals of outreach of environmental education. And so for me, bringing my passion and understanding what I needed to do and applying my experience to my master's in education really was a thrill for me to put it all into one book. And what my intent for this project is to basically empower educators, empower environmental educators, and to empower districts to apply what I've put together into something that they could replicate or model in their environment. That's the purpose for my project, which is a connection to nature for every student, a resource model guide to adapt high quality and accessible outdoor environmental education for elementary educators. I also want to add that this is for environmental educators because that's what I do. So I wanted to just kind of touch a little bit on the abstract, which basically summarizes how children have limited encounters with nature. They're becoming increasingly disconnected, and the need, the purpose to include elementary education in school curricula. I wanted to basically highlight 2 project goals, which are to provide a research-based resource model guide for elementary educators to adapt and include environmental education in existing school curricula. And my secondary project goal was to engage and connect elementary students to nature by implementing high quality and accessible outdoor education in school curricula. Moving on to the standards that I was working with. The North American Association for Environmental Education is a national partner for the Forest Service, and their organization supports collaboration from different organizations, civic responsibility, and all based on scientific research. Moving on to the in-task standards, I focused on the Standard 5, which is basically working on collaboration and critical thinking skills for students. This also addresses environmental local and global issues. And last but not least, you have to include the next generation science standards. I included kindergarten and second grade in there, but in my job, I do K through 12. So those are the standards I addressed. And the professional questions and rationale, straightforward, elementary educators, how can elementary educators collaborate with environmental educators to provide meaningful, outdoor, accessible environmental education in existing school curricula? And second, how can environmental education foster elementary students' environmental literacy and stewardship with connection to nature? My goal is for every student to have that connection to nature, and making it accessible for students by working with environmental education organizations like the Forest Service, like the TRPA, like League to Save Lake Tahoe, working all together and seeing the masses of students, all the different students. That's our goal. It's not just teachers selected and working with, one-on-one and just the chosen teachers that really like science. It's making sure we see every student and allowing that development of relationship with nature to flourish. So as Berendt and Franklin found, by enhancing students' connection to nature with the inclusion of environmental education in school curricula, students can engage and have a heightened environmental awareness and responsibility and leadership in future environmental issues, which was one of my key findings in my research. Finally, I have my references here. Like Amy mentioned, it was real difficult to narrow down all the different fun findings I found. But anyway, that's fun. So let's see. So my main goal, like I mentioned, is to work with all environmental educators to provide and engage the community. I want to empower educators to professionally develop and hone their skills and get excited about science and environmental education. And with that, students in turn have an improved environmental literacy and stewardship principles that they can take with them into their future. In my professional experience, in the last 8 years working with different environmental educators and students, and this is what I found also in my research, is that students are able to acquire more skills by learning from building blocks, so one grade to the next, versus a one-time Forest Service interpretive outing that they get to go on a field trip with. So that's part of what my work has been, and part of my master's project is working in different grades, providing those environmental education programs for teachers to easily adapt and do in the classroom. And then we as in my team, are able to provide those environmental education programs as a post lesson from the classroom piece. Although I'm not a traditional classroom teacher, I do have the best job working outdoors in with the kids. But my graduate level work has really allowed me in my Forest Service profession to grow and learn about all the other different opportunities that I could have in my profession without working in the classroom. One of them is I've been tasked with working in building partnerships and building community. And so recently, my regional forest leadership has asked me to engage in working with another community, which is going to be the Monterey Bay community, working with the NOAA organization, so working with the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration and building a relationship with the NOAA organization and showing how they could build their own conservation education curriculum. Essentially, I'm going to give that book to them, which is really exciting for me. That's exactly why I did this. And so these, NOAA has relationships with districts, but they're just not really sure how to get things started. And so in my book, I've kind of referenced how you could build relationships and partnerships, what are shared expectations from one another and so forth, which I reference in my book. And so I'm really, really excited about that. That's been something new that's kind of come up just recently in the last couple of weeks. So I'll be traveling to Monterey Bay soon, in Santa Barbara, and being able to share a shared theme of from mountaintop to ocean floor. So that's really exciting. A second goal that I've recently been able to be a part of with my position in the Forest Service is we are currently looking at national level building partnerships with healthcare providers. So I don't know if you've all heard about prescribing nature. Doctors are looking to prescribe nature to lower healthcare costs and be preventative for all the different types of healthcare health problems that people have. And nature simply is that solution. So a lot of the research that I'm looking forward to doing more in my future is being able to support building partnerships with some of the largest public land managing agencies with the largest healthcare providers in the community. What we're doing is marrying my very passion of being outdoors and connecting people to nature, not just students, but every person. So if I was able to take my book and redo this, I think I would want to include every person, connection with nature. So this is going to be really exciting. It's on Forest Leadership National level that I'm going to be working with them and providing a model similar to what I've created here and showing how you can stimulate people's curiosity and make people really excited about the outdoors. I did have a little bit more research on that. According to the National Environmental Education Foundation, that's also another Forest Service partner, exposure to nature can reduce stress levels as much as 28% with children. Furthermore, more than 1 in 3 children are obese or overweight in the United States, and minority and low-income children are extremely affected. So working in the healthcare realm and building, helping people build relationships and partnerships in this, it's going to be resulting in a higher performance and community capacity. And this has everything to do with students in school, people at work, and lowering ultimately healthcare costs. I'm excited about that venture. My project has been a foundation for me to build the 3 important things for my passion, which is community, partnerships, and making nature accessible for every person. So by embracing outdoor learning and including environmental education in school curricula, students can certainly have a higher performance in any academic achievements. They are able to have higher communication skills, leadership skills, real-world applicability skills, problem-solving skills. It really is endless, and so I'm just really excited about this project, and it's been leading me to a lot of different new things in recent weeks. So I think that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan, so much. Exciting things ahead for you. This is exactly what she had hoped for, and it shows our department how we are able not just to affect the classroom, but as Megan has noted, this is really exciting. It's possible to affect the entire population, and something that we'll continue to look forward to hearing about. Megan, thank you for sharing that with us. That's absolutely delightful. Our next candidate is Taryn Kirk, and Taryn will be talking to us about another passion that she has in the citizen science project area. So if you'll give me a moment, I will do a quick change, and thank you very much, Chris, for I'd like to mention, I see Celine, there she is. You were moving around our room. Celine is we're very delighted to have her from Sierra Nevada College's newspaper called the Eagle's Eye. The Eagle's Eye, right? Exactly. And so she's come here to cover our department and our candidates and this evening. Thank you so much, Celine, for joining us. Let me get one more thing.
Great. Well, hello. My name is Taryn Kirk. I am the creator of the Citizen Science Project, which is an instructional guide for middle school citizen science STEM project-based learning. So Cheryl asked that I kind of start out by talking a little bit about myself and some of the things that I'm currently doing as an educator. So I will start with that. So I am currently a science teacher at O'Brien STEM Academy. I am the department lead science teacher at O'Brien STEM Academy. I also work with Project Recharge, which is the Envirolution nonprofit education organization, and we develop sustainability curriculum. And we've been going to a couple of different conferences. I'll tell you a little bit about that later on. I also work with UNR's cybersecurity initiative for teachers, looking into more of the technology aspects, which has come in handy with this project as well. I started my journey in education about 6 years ago. So I went to the University of Colorado at Boulder. I received a degree in environmental science there, and thought I wanted to go into environmental law, and I did an 8-month internship at Wolf Law on campus, and I absolutely hated it. Just a bunch of fat cats, and they were throwing money at us to do environmental research and then not actually applying any of what we were coming up with. But anyway, so I kind of did some soul searching and realized that I had always been the happiest working with youth. It's something that I had always been engaged in. And maybe if I could inspire young minds to action in their communities, then we would see the necessary changes that we wanted to see in our world. So I applied to an organization called City Year. Their motto is "Give a Year, Change the World," and they send you to the most at-risk schools in the nation for a year of service. They placed me in Jacksonville, Florida, where I worked in a Title I school for a year, and it was one of the most challenging yet rewarding experiences of my life. But I signed on for a second year. So after that second year, I kind of realized, okay, if I can continue to do this, then I think I've kind of found my niche. I miss the mountains. Florida is flat and dry and hot. So Kevin and I moved to Reno after that. And we still have the ability to work in Title I schools, and I found Sierra Nevada College. I found their alternative route to licensure program, which I completed, and this project, which has kind of turned into a huge passion project since then. So let me tell you a little bit about it. So the Citizen Science Project is an instructional guide for middle school citizen science, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics project-based learning, which is a mouthful. So let me break that down for you a little bit. In going into science, becoming a science educator, and especially moving to Nevada, it was really interesting because Nevada had just decided that they wanted to choose the integrated route for science education at the middle school level. California had just adopted this, and so they put together a task force, and I got a chance to be a part of that task force. And we combed through all of the NGSS standards, and we decided we were not going to do a top-level arrangement. We were going to do this integrated arrangement. So no longer will science be taught as this earth science, life science, physical science in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, leading up to that big test in 8th grade. Now we're melding it all together. So while this is research-based, and it really does allow for students to not just look through these 3 different lenses, but really understand the world in that scientific context, and look at it from a multifaceted and multidimensional perspective. It left teachers with this big, oh my gosh, we've been teaching this way for years and years and years. How are we going to do this? NGSS is also this 3-dimensional model. I brought this for you because it kind of breaks it down really well. So there's the disciplinary core concepts or core ideas, the science and engineering practices, and the cross-cutting concepps. And those are the 3 dimensions. So you have to do all of these things in this integrated model as well. So it can be pretty overwhelming, like intensely overwhelming. NGSS constructed this because they realized, they put together this task force, and I won't bore you with the details, but essentially it came down to, hey, we need this knowledge-based economy to perpetuate these science and engineering fields that are coming about in our world, that are so important that the United States is falling behind in. So how do we take all of these things and teach them to our middle school students? That's insanely overwhelming. So a way that really allows for students to get involved in this and care about it is to be engaged with it. And in order to be engaged with it, they have to get their hands dirty. So the development and implementation of public participation projects that yield both scientific and those educational outcomes has been deemed a pedagogically dynamic way to do this. Part of that research came from Hastings, who is one of my first references here. So Hastings talked about remodeling science education so that it would fit this need for the United States, as well as address these next generation science standards and include all of those pieces. So NGSS necessitates the exploration of phenomena. Phenomena meaning, what is something that is going to allow for their curiosity to be sparked. So if I show my students a picture of a mountain, why is it that there is snow on one side, but the other side of these peaks has no snow on it? Oh my gosh, what a conundrum, So we have to spark their interest in it. And that allows them to get into this inquiry-based model, which is also a part of NGSS. So we pull that in, and that's built into each of the lessons in the project. And many teachers are overwhelmed in the pursuit by which to engage, but also to authentically assess this. So the purpose of my instructional guide is to meld that STEM instruction with engaging citizen science research opportunities through project-based learning, which has lots and lots of research behind it. And I've got a couple of those for you as well. So my project goals, the primary goal was to develop this PBL instructional framework for middle school science educators that would integrate STEM and citizen science methods. And the secondary goal was to promote middle school students' engagement, inquiry in that science content, and their interest in their overall STEM career paths. So how can we get them from just, I'm hooked, I'm interested, I'm doing something fun and engaging, my hands are dirty in the classroom, to, hey, we can inform public policy here. We can change the way that the world views whatever it is we're looking at here. So it is an extension of that knowledge. And curiosity is key. I'm just coming back to that. So the professional and content standards, the NSTA is the organization I chose, and I did the importance of taking personal responsibility for professional growth. And then NGSS has standards. You could go with the integrated model, which we're using in Washington County School District, and they're numerous. I mean, there's earth, life, and physical science standards. But the ones that work in every grade level, in every lesson, and that we have to continuously teach are those engineering practices. So So I chose the engineering practices because the content is going to depend on the project you're actually doing. If you're focusing on, bioindicators, then you're focusing on those life science standards. But if you're focusing on, looking at soil deposits and erosion, then you're looking at earth science standards. So those are fluid. Like, that depends on the teacher, and they're going to be able to pull that into the project. But the engineering design standards are constant. They're going to continuously use those throughout their instruction, no matter what. So that first question there is, what effective research-based strategies are applicable in the development and the implementation of this authentic citizen science STEM PBL framework that would also integrate those next generation science standards? So Hastings played a great role in that. Hastings essentially stated that STEM reform requires a student-centered model that primarily involves modeling. So again, they have to get in, they have to get their hands dirty, and there was an incredible quote in there that I put in my annotated bibliography, where basically Hastings says, at the end of this, huge document that he wrote, you can't learn science out of a textbook. You have to go and get your hands dirty, and kids are not going to care about it unless they actually do. So I thought that was kind of a neat takeaway for that. And it didn't matter who you were, that also teachers, students, and community members had to be involved in that process. So it's kind of that it takes a village mentality behind it. How would the implementation of citizen science STEM PBL curriculum enhance student science content knowledge, student engagement, student inquiry, and overall student interest in STEM career paths? I had two different references that spoke to that. So Bella et al. Had learning and transformative potential of citizen science. They created a task force of 20 individuals that had some sort of expertise, academically speaking, with citizen science. And they took 14 different citizen science projects, and they evaluated all of those projects. And they looked at which ones had the most transformative potential. And they came up with a couple of different things. They found that gains in student mastery of science content knowledge came through that, but also that these students in all 14 of those projects expressed an interest in scientific career paths after the fact. So that was pretty incredible. And then Hiller and Kitsansis, they had this horseshoe crab citizen science program that they did at the middle school level, and they did the citizen science project with one middle school. And then with the other middle school, they used Common Core, like straight out of the instruction of what that district was doing. And then they compared both of them at the end. And they found that the gains that the hands-on citizen science project had were so much higher. These students could verbally attest to what they had gone through. They had the academic component, and it extended beyond just being able to reiterate the information. They were interested in it. They showed that they cared about it at the end of it. They took all these surveys, and they had this incredible data for that. So that was pretty interesting stuff. So that's kind of my poster in a nutshell. Lots of research there. I would really love to talk a little bit about the guide itself, and then talk about some of the things that I've done with it. So this is the guide itself. It's organized into 3 different sections. I got some special permission for the way that I organized this project. So it starts out with a letter to educators, why citizen science, and just kind of hooks the educators and thanks them for picking this up, because it means that they are as into creating engaging science materials as I am in creating this for them. So section 1 is the planning phase. It has a citizen science checklist. It has a project planning guide. So from start to finish, how can you manage all of the moving pieces of this? A weekly instructional guide, and the weekly instructional guide also is color-coded with the next generation color code, so you can make sure that you have that included as well. A newsletter that you can send home to parents, and a quality assurance project plan, and that was this like 50+ EPA guide, and I just kind of like broke it down, the most important parts that you would need, because if you don't have that quality assurance project plan, and you go to submit that project for scientific evaluation and research, they're going to say, your research is null, there's no way for us to ensure that the way that your students were collecting this data was sound and can be used for scientific practices. And that's the whole point, is to inform policy at the end. The implementation phase has lessons. So it starts out with the curious nature of citizen science, getting that hook, getting your students to understand what citizenship is and why it's important to play a role in that in a scientific perspective. Lessons 3 and 4 are to interview a scientist, and again, all of these can be changed for whatever your citizen science project is. Lesson 5 is the individual project expectations. Then there's a team project expectation, so we're pulling in all of the project-based learning aspects of it as well. And then there is a day in the field, and that is the actual data collection portion of it. So I had a friend of mine help me create an app that would allow them to go out, and it works with the worksheet in here as well, so that they could go out and they could collect this data for whatever citizen science project it was. It works, it's a little glitchy, it's homemade, it's a homegrown app. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, because that was something I think I've overcome. The assessment phase, so that's individual and team assessment rubrics, the Citizen Science Day event planner. So you want to end with a big event. That's just good project-based learning. Your kids are going to care more if they know that their parents and the scientists and other important community members are going to come to an event at the end, that they're going to have to get up and present it and talk about everything that they've done. They'll have more buy-in, and they'll just take it more seriously if they know that they're going to have to get up and do something like this and present to someone. And then the reflection guides, I think, are really important, because the aspects of a citizen science project, it's a reflection guide for students. So, student mastery, what did your students learn? And it's a whole one-page document that they have to fill out for that. And then there is a reflection guide for the community, so any community members that were involved in this project. So, hey, did your community members actually increase their scientific knowledge and scientific literacy? And then also for the scientist itself. So whoever you collaborated with on this project, what did they learn? What data were they able to use? What would they do differently if they were to put together a citizen science project again? So, because scientists don't always think like educators, so that collaboration piece is key there. So that's a really good one. Standards matrix, and then there are helpful citizen science websites and additional resources. If you would like to look through this book, you're more than welcome to, but I want to very quickly just kind of show you the website that I put together in addition to this. I'm sorry if I'm talking very fast. I want to make sure you see it all. Okay, so Alt-Tab. Okay. All right, so this is the Citizen Science Project. It's all about creativity, community, and collaboration. This is a little icon that I made for it. Yay. So it tells you a little bit about citizen science, and then how, my goal is to provide support for teachers that are interested in carrying out a citizen science project. You can download the instructional guide here, so my entire book is, you click that button and it'll all pop up there for you. And then my information is here as well. These are some possible projects that you could think of doing. So sagebrush, Tucky Meadows watershed, wildfires in the Great Basin, and then my contact information is at the bottom there. The instructional framework is available here. So again, you can download it here or here. And then this is just 2 different formats that work depending on the computer system you're using. This one's really helpful. I've had the opportunity to present this project at a couple of different forums. I've presented it at the NSTA conference in Los Angeles. I presented it for the Washoe County School District Curriculum Day. And I'll be going to the Green Schools Conference in Denver in May, and that's actually with Project Recharge, which I'm really excited about. So there's parts of this in that, but it's more sustainability with the curriculum that I'm doing there. But I think my biggest takeaways are is the information that I've gotten from teachers that have used this project. So I have a little list. Some of the projects that some teachers have done: mushroom biodiversity in relationship to different forest ecosystems, the use of lichens as bioindicators, interpreting the effects of climate change on stranded marine mammals, collecting Daphnia samples to note watershed health, and also collecting soil samples. So those were just some of the projects that some of the teachers have used this project for. And I've tried to stay in contact with them and discuss with them, hey, what is working, what is not working, how can I supplement this any further? You know, as an educator, what are the difficulties that you've had? And I think that that information has been very important, especially for the website. So I've heard that difficulty in design has been a problem because every project is so specific. So for teachers that have, you know, different backgrounds, that sometimes they're having a difficulty in designing projects. And I found that the best way to combat that hurdle has been to partner them with someone who is actually interested in helping them from the start to the finish. So making sure you have that community piece. We're really lucky here in Nevada. We have the Desert Research Institute. We have Turk right here. We also have Truckee Meadows Parks Foundation, and I've gotten a chance to work with all three of them on different citizen science aspects. And I think that having done a citizen science project by myself from start to finish versus collaborating with them from start to finish, it is so much easier if you have that planning piece together and you have the professionals that are willing to really back it up and set that schedule from start to finish there. And I've been told that the hardest part is coming up with effective ways to collect and interpret data. So I created that app. We've been trying to use it. It works online and it works offline. However, since I made the project, I have found quite a few